Senator Hickenlooper.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Secretary Haaland, I can only imagine the difficulty as someone who served locally for the state of New Mexico and then served for this country in Congress to be on the receiving end of such pointed questions when any appointed person knows it's always a difficult balance of how to interpret what the White House or others are saying. So I feel a remarkable empathy for the process of going through it, but it doesn't make me want to stop about the U.S. Geological Survey and the 23%, which I was going to say is not enough of an increase. I'm just kidding. I think it's a long overdue increase, and I think as we are going through this great energy transition, I think what Senator Lee and so many people are concerned about, and I think there is an urgency on most of this committee to make sure we have a balanced approach, because as we get to a clean energy economy as quickly as we can, we want to make sure that we don't balance that on the backs of working people who can't afford to spend $100 or even $80 to fill up their cars. Another parallel of this is essential minerals, what we call critical minerals. They're hard to find here. We are heavily reliant on imports, as you know. Somehow we need to decrease our reliance on foreign countries and figure out how to improve our domestic supply chain. I saw that the budget request within the U.S. Geological Survey is for supply chain research related to critical minerals. And I realize you're not going to be able to give all the details, and Mr. Boudreaux, you might can help in on this, but I was curious what that looks like. How can the Department of the Interior help bolster our domestic critical minerals supply chain?
Thank you for asking that, Senator. And I just want to say that I recognize how difficult times are for people. I was a single mom, and so I understand what everyone's talking about. Thank you for letting me say that. So the bipartisan infrastructure law made a major investment in the U.S. Geological Survey's Earth MRI program, and that would be spending of $320 million over 5 years. The bipartisan infrastructure law also set a 10-year initial goals for that program, the Earth MRI. We expect to have a map of the majority of areas believed to have subsurface critical mineral potential during that time or within that time, and we'll develop then a first-generation national mine waste inventory. So we're working. I also mentioned earlier the interagency work group that wants to move the efficiency of that forward. And I don't know if Tommy would like to say anything.
No, I agree. I mean, it is, as directed by the President, one of the primary goals of the interagency working group is to move forward on domestic sourcing, including through mining, but also through new technology development, as well as recycling, to source these materials. It is also, and I know you know this better than anyone, Senator Hickenlooper, part of the challenge is being saddled with the 1872 mining law. And with renewable energy, we can have a leasing program that deconflicts potential resource from tribal conflicts, wildlife conflicts, et cetera. We're not able to do that under the 1872 mining law. And so one of the things we'll be working with Congress on is to modernize the law. I mean, not every century, maybe every other century, we should take a look at those laws and update them.
I think you'll have some eager participants here. Secretary Haaland, the BLM, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about your efforts, and I know there's progress being made, and again, Mr. Boudreaux, you can chime in, but the expanded leadership in Grand Junction's Western headquarters amongst, we want to make sure that you're making sure there's an adequate presence in Washington, D.C., balanced with that expanded leadership in Grand Junction's Western headquarters. How is the DOI going to be able to offer concrete information on not just the number of employees, but the leadership positions at the Grand Junction Western headquarters as we go forward.
Thank you, Senator, and I know we've talked about this a number of times, and I've always been so happy to visit Colorado when I have had those opportunities. And you know, I traveled to Grand Junction. I had a meeting with the employees there in person over the internet because we were still in COVID. But you probably know that the BLM started an employee advisory group. They're working right now to make those recommendations for all the potential positions for the Western headquarters. We'll absolutely be reviewing those recommendations soon and expect to be able to announce those roles and possibly the numbers sometime in the near future. If you want to reach out to us anytime, we're happy to give you an update on where we are on that. And I think we're in pretty close contact with your staff in your office.
I think your staff is probably tired of our phone calls, but we do appreciate your visits, multiple visits, 2 visits to Colorado were warmly received by Republicans, Democrats. I think your willingness to go out to Grand Junction and to meet with people in their own town, in their own home, really spoke volumes and was a time very well spent. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yield back.